British boxing has a new superstar. Josh Taylor became the unified super lightweight world champion by beating Regis Prograis in London last weekend. This is After the Bell, Mirror Fighting's new boxing show in association with Betfair.
Hey, it's the WBA heavyweight champion of the world!
Move like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
The Mirror brings you After the Bell in association with Betfair.
Welcome to this week's After the Bell. I'm joined again by George and by Declan. And there is, of course, only one place to start. That was London at the O2 on Saturday night. Josh Taylor unifying the super lightweight division. Brilliant fight against Regis Prograis. And actually, George, a fight that lived up to the billing and delivered.
Yeah, it really did. It was a brilliant fight to watch. All action. It was, momentum swings and which way is it going to go. And I think we saw another level, another depth to each fighter. Especially Josh Taylor, who in the UK everyone's been following diligently, and in this fight in particular, he showed real character, championship quality. I felt like Prograis had sort of got to grips with the pace of the fight and started to establish his rhythm, and was starting to take control after 4 or 5 rounds. But then Taylor bit down the gum shield, physically imposed himself, got some big shots in, and then from there on in, the fight swung back in his way, and it was a close decision. I had 2 points in it. I made Taylor the winner, but what a brilliant fight.
Declan, we should remember that Josh has only had 16 professional fights. He stepped up every time. Did you see anything on Saturday that you maybe hadn't seen before? Did he improve again for you?
Yeah, well, I thought the most surprising thing was how good he looked up close. And I know Prograis was making him miss a lot. His head movement was amazing on the inside, but still, I thought his best chance of winning would be to try and keep it long and try and outbox him a bit. But got right up close, and it was the level, like the technical level, was absolutely absurd, really. And yeah, that working close, and Prograis just couldn't really get to grips with him. Didn't really land anything massive at all. I know the eye went, so even when he couldn't see out of that eye, he was still managing to evade it. And 16 fights to have achieved what he's already achieved is absolutely incredible, really. For me, probably makes him number one pound for pound in Britain at the moment. I think the thing that with Taylor is what doesn't really align now is how his profile against how good he is. He needs to be more of a star. Hopefully this is the star-making fight for him. And now he goes on, he's 28, he's got it all to come now. But, I mean, it was just an incredible night. And if you think about the context of boxing at the moment, it was a tough couple of weeks with what happened with Patrick Day. And when that happens, you start thinking to yourself, I know I do, you start thinking, what's this sport all about? Like, is it really worth it? Are we really comfortable with what can happen? And usually those questions are answered when you walk in an amateur gym and you see what the sport does for kids. But when you go and see a fight like that, an occasion like that, just how significant it is, and those two guys, highly skilled, perfectly tuned, putting it all on the line, and then to make matters even better, Prograis at the end says, "Do you know what? The best man won. Fair play to him. What a fight." I mean, it's just a perfect night.
Yeah, it was quality from both fighters in the build-up and then delivered on fight night. I think commercially, like the star status that you're talking about, hopefully now Josh will achieve that, because headline a pay-per-view show, that's when that comes. You put Sky Sports News on, which is almost a shopping channel. Do you know what I mean? They're advertising, they're pushing it hard, and now his profile will be through the roof. He's going to be a big star in Scotland.
Do you agree with Declan that he's best in Britain, pound for pound?
I think so. Thinking about it, it's only the fact that he still seems relatively inexperienced. We haven't seen him that for years. You feel like the guys that you've seen for years and years are the guys who deserve to be at the top. But every time that someone's asked a question of him, he's answered it. And in this fight now, he's showing at the highest level that he's not just a skill-based fighter. He's not just a prospect. He's got that fighting style that he wants it, and he believes in himself, and he's literally got everything that you would want as a trainer looking for a fighter. What do they need? He's got it all. So now it's gonna be tough to manage him, to keep him happy, to keep him motivated, being at the very top. But full credit to him. I generally do think he is number one.
The mad thing about that record, though, is it's a bit like Lomachenko, where he's just had hard fight after hard fight. Even, O'Hara Davis fight, which he made look easy. At the time, people were saying it was a bit of a 50-50. It was like a domestic grudge match, and that was like his 10th fight or something. Went and made light work of it, and then he went into the tournament, 3 hard fights. Baranchyk was supposed to be the big test for him, passed it. Then Prograis was supposed to be an early sort of career definer, and he went and won it like that. Again, I probably personally had it 6-all, but the cards were a little bit strange actually. But you can't argue with the win. And then it's sort of like, well, where'd you go from here? Because we're already talking about unification and undisputed. Then if he wins all those belts, a bit like what you said about Usyk, he's completed boxing. And then you're thinking, right, okay, we're going to go up to welterweight, and you've got like Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. You're thinking, wow, how far can this guy go? Considering he's going to have like 3 or 4 years left in the sport, it's amazing. It's a privilege really to be able to cover him.
And George, obviously, you're no stranger to the World Boxing Super Series. There have been problems. Prograis, I think, pulled out, came back in. Same with Baranchyk, I think, for Taylor. But overall, a good thing for boxing. It is putting the fights on that we want to see.
I think so. For the fighters, for me, it was you sign up and you get some world champions in there. You're going to come out with an awful lot, in a real short space of time that isn't always guaranteed in boxing. I'd been through the mill. Obviously, I'd lost a few attempts at a world title, but I just knew how hard it was to go from a loss to that rebuilding phase to get yourself in a position to fight for a world title. Sometimes you've got to sell your soul to align with other people to get the shot. And then the tournament, you're in, and away they go. They're facing a lot of problems. They always will be. Season 1, they literally had no Americans sign up because that's not Americans, the promoters, the fighters. I don't think they're too interested in. They want to become world champion, and they don't want to relinquish that by giving the option of fighting, the best. But I think so. I think the only problem is that the completing boxing line is always going to be tough. You imagine how much would it cost to get all the best heavyweights in the world in there, and you got to rely on these fighters to actually want to take the big fights. It's all well and good saying it, but it's not necessarily the case that actually happens, because I think it's feasible. It will be mega money for the heavyweights, but the amount of money that it would generate and the interest, and it would be there because you've got so many stars now in the heavyweight division, so much depth of quality, and therefore making for those fights. But do them guys really want to fight each other and sign in and roll the dice with it? So it's tough. It's really tough for the tournament. I've seen the stuff backstage, and you got to pay big money to get these guys to sign up in the first place, because it's all well and good Josh Taylor being a 13-0 prospect at the start of it, but by the time he gets to the final, he's a world champion in a unification fight. It's like, well, this is different money than I'm getting at the start. So I think that was a problem. They struggled with funds a little bit. They've got to really establish themselves. And what was really disappointing for me was that on behalf of the tournament, was that show on Saturday night wasn't a tournament show. Usually they have the lighting rig, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a nuisance sometimes if you're the fighter and they want you to stand on stage and wait and be bossed around, but it was something a bit different, and it would have been great exposure for a real boxing audience. If you've paid £20 to watch this show, you're going to be paying attention. You'll be like, wow, this looks a bit different. This is a bit special. So they lost out on that. I'm sure that would have broke Caller's heart a little bit, and lots of the other guys involved in the World Series. And I asked them if we're going season 3, and they said, yeah, it's on the way, but a lot of stuff going on. They still haven't announced the Cruiserweight final. But when you actually go back and look at it back and you go, there were some tremendous fights in it, even this season.
I think that might work against them though, because if you think about the first season, that Cruiserweight lineup was like the best of Cruiserweight, and then you had you in there with the belt at super middle, and then now you're hearing rumours about who it could be, and it's almost like it's now a step down. It's usually like the second tier lot in the division, because the champions don't want to go in the tournament, or their handlers don't fancy signing them up to a tournament. So then people are like, well, it's not as good as the first one, is it? Like when they used to get all the best people in. So then they have to be able to try and get the names that are relevant, and that's why they might struggle with something like heavyweight, because you're never going to get Joshua. You're never going to convince Joshua or even Tyson Fury or whatever to go in and say, right, you can control what I'm going to do for the next 3 fights. So I don't know if they're on a bit of a hide into nothing. And then also you've had the earache here and there with people pulling out, and obviously the money is not always in place. Well, that's what it seems like.
It's a quick turnaround. You know, when they sold it to me, it was 3 fights in 12 months. Like, yeah, let's go for it. And then I pulled my shoulder out in February, and you know, I just didn't want them to put Eubank in. You know, like, and you know, at my stage of my career, I'm like, do I really want to go again, or should I just do my utmost to make sure I'm fit enough for the final? And they needed me in the final because I was the only guy with a belt. They didn't want to move the dates, but they had to move them in the end. And really, you know, it's a real tight turnaround. You know, it's a real tight turnaround. So there's a lot of constraints. I think trying to get it in that calendar year, I think that's something that they've realised is not necessarily achievable. They always wanted to keep it tight because Callow promoted the Super 6 with Cole Froch that seemed to take a lifetime. It took 2.5 years, and people kind of lost interest in it, lost momentum. So yeah, I get that, but there has to be some sort of leeway. They have to be flexible. It's not Champions League football like I think they envisioned it to be, where, you know, the best teams, they want to be in there and play with each other because of the exposure and the money and everything else. It's like boxing is very different. So I do love it. I hope long may it succeed, but it probably still needs a few things to, you know, iron out a few problems.
Well, we'll take a look at what's next for Josh Taylor in a moment, but on the undercard on Saturday, Dereck Chisora stopped David Price in the 4th round. The towel came in. We had a bit of a conversation beforehand about that decision. George, I'll come to you, right or wrong?
Well, you know, from the corner, who are, you know, they have a relationship with David Price, it's the right decision because Price was on the verge of getting stopped, and Price, when he does get stopped, he gets stopped usually pretty badly. You know, he's 6'7", 6'8". He gets hit on the chin and he goes down heavy and hard. The problem I had was that compassionate from the corner, but the way I observed it is they've basically thrown the towel in on David Price's career. He's come back so many times now, and you know, he hasn't been successful at the gatekeeper level to world title status, and throwing the towel in what was a co-main event pay-per-view fight where, you know, as brutal as it sounds, you know, people have paid money, they want to see the fight, and sometimes you have to go out on your shield. He took the fight at late notice, and he got stopped by Dereck Chisora, so it felt like that's sort of cool time on your career now, David. And I hope he does. Like, I hope he does, and he doesn't look back with any regrets or takes anything I'm saying or anyone else says personally, because, you know, he's achieved a lot in the sport. He might not have got as far in the pro ranks as he thought he would have when he started, but he's been involved in some big fights, had some big nights, stellar amateur career. But I think it's probably time now for him to enjoy some time, you know, maybe with his family, or just try something different.
Declan?
Yeah, I thought when the towel came in, and obviously he's on his feet and he's in the corner, he's clearly still in some trouble. I remember thinking, wow, that's a bit of a surprise. But then when you sort of think about it and you look at the wider picture, it sort of makes sense. I agreed with it because, like you said, it was the only thing we were going to get from that point was Chisora going to walk him down and land a big one.
But just interrupts at the end of that round before, when he looks like he's about to get stopped, he hits him with, you know, the uppercut that comes up, and he nearly puts Chisora out of there.
Changes it.
So if he's on the verge of fighting for a world title, David Price, and you're the corner, you're leaving him in there. You're leaving him in there in case he catches him again.
Yeah.
If he's a David Haye versus Carl Thompson moment, you know, he's getting the towel's coming in because you want to save him for another day and he'll come again. But at this stage of his career, compassionate from the corner, but, you know, it was
it's a heavyweight title. Yeah, I suppose he needs to be. But I do think that the thing with Price is that he will get another opportunity. And I think they were looking at that, and like you say, it's a late notice fight. They're probably thinking, right, look, it's the first time he gets in any serious trouble. Let's get him out, because if we have a proper camp, we could go again. We'll take the money for this one. We can't turn that money down. And who knows, we could knock Chisora out because he'd been stopped by Dillian Whyte. Maybe his punch resistance not what it used to be. Let's give it a go. Right, he's caught him there. He's in trouble. Let's get him out now and we can go again. Because like you say, I wonder if he got sparked like against Povetkin, and it's people see that again, there's no coming back from that. But I wonder whether people watching it will still give him another opportunity, and you know that Price will take it because of the guy he is. He stepped up box Povetkin at late notice. He's done this one at late notice. He knows he's not got many chances left. So I wonder whether pulling him out in opposite to what you're saying, I wonder if that's elongated his career, giving him another pop at it, because you know that there'll be an opportunity at heavyweight somewhere. Look, a spider bite got him that fight. So who knows what will happen. If he'd got really badly chinned by Chisora, is there coming back from that? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, Chisora obviously, as you said, wanted to fight Joseph Parker, was supposed to fight Joseph Parker, but got the job done. Professional.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure what to. No one's ever really that sure, I suppose, with Dereck Chisora what to expect. But he fought definitely the right fight. Most of his fights now, he's quite energised and he wants to come in and let his hands go. I don't think he gave David Price that much respect of his power or something like that, because he was very aggressive. He's wide open at times, Chisora, and even at the end when the round before when he was putting the shots together, he walked onto a big shot that probably sort of half woke him up, and he was a bit conscious of the power that was coming back. But the right tactics from Chisora just to pressure Price. There's been we've seen it many times with Price where he does gas out in fights. And especially if he took the fight at relatively late notice, then he might be more susceptible to that anyway. So the right tactics from Chisora. He's a big old unit, and when he pushed and he's swarming you, I can imagine that's quite almost suffocating. For a guy you're fighting. And Price needs to. If he's close range, then he's going to walk onto that uppercut. But if he's at longer range, he'll be able to get his straight right hand through, which is also a great shot for him. So obviously, getting inside, he was coming in again with the old Fraser guard, and it's always fun to watch. And he got the job done. I think once what you can rely from with Chisora is when he hurts the guys, then he's happy to empty the tank and get it done. Sometimes he empties the tank and you got to watch him recover for 2 rounds. But this time around, he boxed very well. He looked fit and healthy, considering there was rumours that he's not listening to his new coach Steve Broughton, and he's not training. He's coming heavy and he's not taking it seriously. But good performance from Chisora.
I was a bit surprised by David Price's tactics. He looked to be he was hooking off the jab a lot, looking to catch and counter. Obviously knowing that Chisora was going to look for the overhand right, so he looked like he was trying to anticipate that and then land a short left hook when, like you say, his power seems to be in the other hand. And it wasn't until late in the second round he actually threw a right hand, let alone landed one. So I was a little bit surprised by that. Maybe if he did it again, he might look to just try and set him up with something straighter, but obviously it didn't work in the end. He caught him though, and Chisora said in the presser it did hurt him. So if he jumped on him at that point, and it was the same with Povetkin. He didn't get that chance to jump on him, and then it could have all been different. And these are the little things you say about David Price, and you think, maybe he'll come again. Maybe he's got one more in him, if he lands the right hand. But I think he's got another chance in him because the towel came in. I think people will be forgiven enough, particularly the casual sort of audience who maybe don't know the whole story with David Price. They might buy into him fighting again with the right opponent. Who knows? But for Chisora, it's a great win for him, and he marches on. Yeah.
Well, we'll take a look next at what is next for Josh Taylor and Dereck Chisora. We're going to play Matchmaker now, and we'll start with Josh Taylor, his win over Regis Prograis at the weekend. He now has 2 of the super lightweight world titles. The other 2 reside with Jose Ramirez. It seems inevitable that fight will happen at some point next year. George, would you say that Josh needs an easier fight maybe in 6 months' time when he recovers?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't need an easier fight, but it would be nice for him to have one. I don't see the immediate rush to get in there with Ramirez and get all the belts. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe that's the fight that makes the most amount of sense, makes the most amount of money. But he's had a hectic schedule. He's had a hectic career. He's always been in tough fights, and as I say, the tournament, he had a long camp for that last fight. It was a hard fight, physical fight with Prograis, and he come through on a split decision. So I'd like to see him have a little bit of a rest, have a break. He's just bought a lovely new house in Scotland that he needs to refurnish.
He's got no furniture
and that,
there.
yeah. So that'll keep him busy for a little bit, and then no doubt he'll get sick of shopping with the missus looking around furniture shops. Then he'll have to get back in the gym and look to be out again. But I'd like to see him learn how to become a world champion. Not that he doesn't know how to do that, but it's the tournament was thrust upon him. He becomes world champion straight away. He's in unification. He doesn't need to now go into another unification. It needs to be a proper fight, something that would be stimulating for him, but something maybe back in Scotland or definitely in the UK where he can build on the momentum that he's got from the tournament and definitely on the big win from Saturday night. So who that will be, not 100% sure, because we've got Ritson written down here as well. They spoke about Ritson beforehand. It just seems like for me there's just too much of a golfing class. But fighters get put together which are wider, and then by the time the fight comes round, everyone's thinking something different. So we never know. But I'm not 100% sure where he goes from here. But not in a bad way, in a good way.
And one thing, as far as we understand, Declan, he's a promotional free agent, so there's bound to be a scramble for his signature.
Yeah, that's going to really help him, and it will help him get that Ramirez fight eventually. But with George, I don't see how that could really be next. Ramirez, I don't think, has got anything in the diary yet, so I guess he'll be looking to get something reasonably soon. And if you see the state of Josh's eye, and obviously he's had a lot, the tournament was a long time, he had a long camp, he's going to need a bit of time off. So I'm not sure how they'll align for the next fight. And then his options are open. He can go where he wants. I would assume that he'll end up on DAZN in America because that's where the money's at. And obviously with Eddie being sort of involved in that through Matchroom, I wonder whether that might be the move. Again, it'd be up to Barry McGuigan, who's his manager, who's with Cyclone, obviously, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, it's like a good headache to have, not the eye. I mean, there's a good headache that he's got all these options open, and he seems to be able to go anywhere. And I would assume, boxing-wise, you would think he'll have an easy one, or at least a fight that he can, and not another unification. And just looking at the names we've got there, Ritson for one, I just think it's far too early for Ritson. And it's not even as if now, like based on what we saw against Baranchik and even more so against Prograis, he doesn't seem to have any vulnerability about him where you'd say, but Ritson's a big puncher, you could get to him. I just can't see how they could do that. I suppose if they were to sell out St James's Park or something like that, there'd be so much money on the gate that might entice him. But I don't know whether that would happen, and even whether Ritson would fancy that. He's got people managing him. Yeah. Why would you want to go into that fight and get? He's pretty young. Why would you go and get knocked out? Why don't you go and have a couple of other fights? Maybe build yourself into better position. So it's a hard one. Maybe he'll look for an IBF mandatory. I'm sure they're going to chuck one on him soon. So maybe they'll look to get that out of the way. We hear that a lot. Get the IBF mandatory out of the way, and then look ahead to a unification. But it's going to be amazing. I just hope it happens, because too often in sport, without the tournament anyway, the unifications don't happen.
Yeah. So obviously very open at the moment. Ritson is actually the 6-4 favourite with Betfair to be Taylor's next opponent. Ramirez 11-4, and then Mario Barrios, who has the regular WBA title, is 6-1. Let's assume then that at some point next year, Taylor takes on Ramirez. Let's assume they win a fight in the interim period, and there's no sort of change in their relative abilities. How do you sort of not price up, but how do you look at the favourite in that fight?
Let's go Taylor again. He's always steps up to the level of his opposition and exceeded. And I feel like he's going to come out a much better fight now after Saturday night. A much better fighter. Real steep learning curve for him. I feel like I've watched him in the gym, and I've watched him start now behaving more and more like a world champion. Behind the scenes training. There used to be stories of. He was up shadow boxing at 3:00 in the morning. It's like, and I remember saying to him, I know you got so much energy, but one time you're gonna have to save this. And he stopped the weekly commutes up and down from Edinburgh to London. Him and his long-term girlfriend, his long-term girlfriend, his dog, they all moved down to London. They got a nice flat down the road from the gym. So he started to really behave like a champion, taking care of himself and invested in himself. And I feel like he's always done what's been asked of him, and he's always made those improvements. I think he's still the best is yet to come. So I got to go with him against Ramirez. I think that he has. Everyone talks about his long game, but his best abilities is always up close. When you watch him in sparring, he always loves being in the face. He loves having the fight, and he seems to be able to. It's for me at times. It looks like he's lingering in range, and like, why is he not getting hit? But it's because he's so good at it. He's got fantastic timing, and as soon as they open up to let something go, he's hitting them hard. He's taking an angle, as well as the short, sharpy, varied power shots that he puts in between. Talented fighter. Number one division. I'll make him the favourite in a Ramirez fight.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I'd make him the favourite. I think he will grow massively from what happened on Saturday. Same with Prograis as well. To be honest, I'll probably pick Prograis to beat Ramirez at the moment. But I think any combination of the three is going to be real close. I don't really see stoppages or anything like that. It's going to be nip and tuck. So it would be great. I assume he's going to have to go to America for it. I just don't see how they get him to Scotland. I just can't see it. They were talking in the press conference about Edinburgh Castle or Easter Road. I wouldn't assume that Ramirez would fancy that. Whereas Taylor would be well up for going to America. I think he'd get fans over there travelling. So yeah, that. And then if it's tight, would he get the decision in America? I think it'd be one of them. That's how tight it will be. And Prograis as well will grow. It's one of those fights where it's almost like a shame to have a loser and Prograis doesn't seem like his confidence has been knocked by it anyway. So he's going to be backing in the mix. Maybe they'll have a rematch one day, but. Yeah, it's a great division. It sort of emerged as one because it didn't seem like it was going to be like that. It gone a bit, especially when Terence Crawford moved up. It was all totally in flux, and now it looks really good. So see what Ramirez does next. I guess he'll look to defend his belts, and then I don't know. Maybe next summer will be the earliest we'll see it, and I would assume that'll be in America. But yeah, I mean, let's just hope it happens.
Yeah. Well, I've heard the Scots like a drink, so I think Las Vegas might be. Well, so they say. Taylor is indeed the 4-7 favourite with Betfair to beat Ramirez. He is 1-4 to beat Barrios and 1-8 to beat Ritson. Let's just touch on Dereck Chisora. I feel like he's maybe in a bit of a difficult spot now. Had he had the Joseph Parker fight, that would have sort of established him clearly as maybe being on the verge of a world title shot. As it is, he's no different to where he was 2 days ago. And Joseph Parker, you assume, might just wait and see what happens with the belts with Joshua and Ruiz, and then see what happens with Usyk. And probably right now he's maybe not actually fancying Chisora.
No, I wouldn't see why they'd select Chisora as an opponent, and I wouldn't see he's on DAZN, and he had Witherspoon as his debut at heavyweight, so it was a bit, people gave him a little bit of leeway with that. The next one's going to have to be a more established opponent, and I'm not sure if Chisora moves the needle that much in America. He does over here, but I think they're looking to really establish themselves in America. So Chisora would be a hard fight for him. I don't know how they would get that. David Hay that's the fight he was talking about in the presser, Chisora's manager. Chisora made a point about wanting to fight Parker. I don't know if they might even look at that and think that's a pay-per-view fight over here, whether you agree with that or not. That's the sort of fight, with the right build that you could see ending up on pay-per-view, whether that would be a right decision or not. But I just can't see Usyk taking the Chisora fight. I don't know what that would do for him. But if he was to win that Chisora, then yeah, he's on the verge of a world title, so he could be back there again, right at the top of the tree. Who knows? If Parker and Usyk fight each other, then it's a problem for Chisora, isn't it?
I mean, we talked about David Price coming back several times. Chisora, to be fair to him, has done well to do the same. He does, he had the setback against White, but the fights were so good, no one really were too bothered about that. But he does have this ability to keep coming back. It would be quite something if he can land a world title shot next year. Yeah,
I mean, heavyweights live forever. they get so much more leeway than any other division. At the moment, they're in the spotlight and a lot, and it gives them that value. Chisora is about the only fighter out there who doesn't chase world titles either. He's not calculating his route to get to the top. He never ever has mentioned wanting to fight Anthony Joshua when he had world titles. He just wants. He'll be looking at the Parker fight, thinking in the UK that might headline a pay-per-view event, and that's more than enough for Chisora. If Parker's in line to fight for the WBO, then I can't see him doing anything apart from sitting it out. Usyk, who likes doesn't really like fights with there isn't a big belt on the line. It seems, he's moved so quickly through his career. He's had his gift at heavyweight. He boxed Witherspoon at late notice, but he seems like now he's in line for the WBO, which will have to become vacant after Joshua Ruiz. So I think them two will fight each other, and Chisora, it could literally just be anyone. It could be an undercard fight on another pay-per-view. You can't see another opponent coming in that could make a pay-per-view main event, unless it's White again. We don't know what White's doing now. He's gone a bit quiet after the last.
Jerome Miller is another one that he could that would sell over here certainly, because Miller's almost his stock has risen commercially after what happened with the steroids. So that could be one for him. We don't know what Miller's going to do, and Chisora won't care one bit about boxing a drug cheat. It would just be like, whatever, if he's a big enough name and going to make me money, he'd do it. So when he comes back in the mix, there'll be a lot of heavyweights trying to get after him because he's a big name now, Miller.
Yeah, that's true. There was another fight on Saturday night. Shakur Stevenson is now the WBO featherweight world champion after his points win over Joet Gonzalez. And the relevance on this side of the Atlantic anyway is that he has called out several times Josh Warrington, obviously, who has the IBF title. He seems willing to come to Leeds, whether that's what he says, whether his team want that. But a fight we could see next year?
What do you think?
I don't know. I think if it does, it's going to be in America, surely. Surely Shakur Stevenson's not coming to Leeds. I can't see that.
And Josh, to be fair, probably wouldn't mind that.
Oh, he'd be well up for it. It's a bit like if you think about UK fighters, the idea of going to America and cracking America and beating a champion over there is far more appealing than it is to an American coming over here. It's just like saying to Ramirez, oh, by the way, do you want to go to Scotland? He's like, no. But does Josh Taylor want to go to Vegas and take all the fans? Like, yes, please. So I could see that happening, and promotionally and everything, I would see that's where it would happen. And I think that Warrington has got the beating of Stevenson at the moment because he likes a bit of space. He likes to be able to do, he runs away with wins like he did against Joet Gonzalez. He hasn't seen anything like that from Warrington, just putting the pressure on, just grinding down. He's got the best chance of beating him. Stevenson's going to be a superstar, 100%. But at the moment, I think that's the where he could come unstuck in that division.
How often does that happen, George? I mean, the saying obviously is a fighter will fight anyone, and I think largely that's probably true. But how often does then the management come in afterward and say, listen, maybe don't be quite so strong with what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. A good fighter is always like, yeah, throw me in, let's go. And then even they might come to think, there might have been easier options or better options or something else. Usually that comes like when the contracts are signed and then you've got to go and do the work. But UK is a big market now. There's a lot of money over here. Obviously, the Brits are going to the States, but there's a big. The idea in the States is that there's big money to be earned over here, and they'll be looking at Warrington knowing that he's a big draw in Leeds, and they probably believe that he's commercially bigger than what he actually is. Obviously, he's fighting on BT. That unification would be on BT pay-per-view, but I'm not sure what the numbers would be and what would generate and what the guaranteed, US TV money is. Always usually seems to trump what's coming over here. But they might be thinking, no, we'll have it off. We'll come. We don't mind travelling to the UK. We back ourselves, and it's going to be this massive pot of money to make. I suppose that's when the management get involved, and they do crunch numbers and go, actually, coming to UK doesn't make the financial sense. We need to, get this over to the States, and maybe with a home advantage, Stevenson's, him and his team believe that they've got a much better shot than the Warrington fight.
The problem with that American thing is that if they were to fight in Leeds, even if it started at 11, you're talking about like the afternoon, and ESPN won't like that at all. Look at Tyson Fury; he's boxing in America for a reason. It's because they want him on at a time that suits them. So yeah, like you say about the TV money, ESPN will be like, no, let's just have it here because we know we'll get this. This is what we're willing to pay if it's on prime time and if it's normal. And Top Rank might even look at it and say, we want to keep our home advantage for this guy. We don't want to give him, give Warrington any advantages here in this difficult fight. And if they do get another belt, because Stevenson's not a massive seller yet, people know about him after the Olympics and stuff, but they can't afford for him to come over here and get beat at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon in America or whatever. That would be a disaster for them, considering he's one of their like real prospects, key prospects. So it would be great though, wouldn't it? And that is the sort of thing. Warrington is someone who really feeds off that. Loves the idea of being the underdog. Loves the idea of that crowd behind him. Probably get the Kaiser Chiefs out again. Lucas Radaby walking him to the ring, or someone else from Leeds. It could be anyone. You take all that away from him. Will it affect his performance? Probably not, but Top Rank might think it might a little bit. So, yeah, I reckon the smart money would be on having it in America.
Unsurprisingly, very close to call with the odds. Warrington 10-11, Stevenson 5-6 with Betfair. Next up, we'll take a look at what's coming up this weekend. Canelo Alvarez is back this weekend. He takes on Sergey Kovalev, going for a world title in a 4th weight division. A quick turnaround for Kovalev. Has Canelo sort of looked at this opportunity, handpicked him almost, to get that light heavyweight belt and then no doubt move back down?
I think I can't believe it's crept up. Seems literally like last month he boxed Anthony Yard, Kovalev. Is that going to take something out of him? Probably. And I guess Canelo knew about that. I think they see this as some opportunity that can't be missed. By all accounts, they've looked at Kovalev for ages. Well, Canelo personally has said, that's the guy I want. I want to win that belt. And then that starts making you, when you're thinking about picking a winner, you've got to consider all that. That was a hard fight for Kovalev as well. Yard almost stopped him. Giving him another 30 seconds probably would have stopped him. And he's got to come back from that. He's had a camp for that fight in Russia. Then he's probably had a week off, back in the camp again for this one. And then he's got to fight Canelo in Vegas. It's a tough schedule. I don't know if that's gonna galvanise him, or whether he's just going to be spent by the time it comes around.
Yeah, I don't know whether he's just looking at Canelo going, this guy's so small. How can I turn down this? It must be a gift. And but Alvarez, as you say, he's been itching for this Kovalev fight forever, and maybe it is another world title in a new division that it's a fight that you can't turn down. And if Kovalev didn't have the title, the fight wouldn't really get made. But such a quick turnaround. Where, as you say, he was in the Yard fight was difficult. It was hard. It was a physical fight. It's a fight where you need to rest your body after, and he hasn't had a chance to do that. So maybe just the right time for Alvarez.
So what do you think Kovalev will have done then? Because obviously his weight wouldn't have gone up too much.
I hope not, because if I can imagine Golden Boy and Alvarez have got some strict rehydration weight checks in and some big fines and that they do like that. They learnt their lesson when they fought Mayweather, so they usually impose that on everyone else they fight now, especially if they're naturally the bigger guy. That again won't work in Kovalev's favour. If you're even just mentally conscious of not putting on any weight, it's going to cost you $500,000 a pound or whatever it's going to come in at. So I think make Alvarez the favourite. You kind of feel like Kovalev's been on the slide for a long time, but then when you actually really think about it, he hasn't. He's put in good performances on paper. He's looked well. He's well championed in a real tough division right now. So I make Alvarez. I can't see how Alvarez loses, because if he wants to fight, then surely he knows more than any of us will ever know. But
it's not like he's calling. It's not like he's calling for the other light heavyweight champions, is it? He's clearly made a beeline for him for a while, and they even moved the date. Usually boxing in September. Moved the date for this fight, it seems like. So he must know something. Must look at it. I suppose he's done. What has he done? 24 rounds with Golovkin, and it wasn't hurt at any point. Maybe buzzed a couple of times, but really wasn't hurt. So he's obviously back in. We know he's got a great chin off the back of that, and he's obviously thinking, I'm actually okay with big punches. That's his only chance. You would look at that fight and think that is his only chance, especially considering it's in Vegas. Yeah. If Canelo outboxes him, or even if it's close in any way, Canelo's surely going to get a decision. As cynical as it might sound, I think Canelo decision is the bet of the weekend, bet of the year maybe.
Well, that's a big claim, and that is 10-11 with Betfair.
See, it's not good. See, that's not great value because of that. It's so clear. You can almost see it happening now, can't you? You can see it 8-9 rounds down, and Canelo hasn't really been hurt at any point, and you think he's probably a couple of rounds ahead here, and then he's very good with his trunk. His trunk defences are immaculate, and you can just see him staying out of trouble for 12 rounds. If he does that, you think you've got to take it on the cards.
So let's assume he does indeed do that. Where does he go next? Where does he settle? Because he's not going to stay at light heavyweight. So
no, he might be looking at the heavyweights now. He's not going to stay at light heavyweights. I don't think he's moved up to light heavyweight because that's the only weight class he can sort of make now. He shot up to super middleweight to beat Rocky Fielding, in 2 rounds, so like a gimme fight, and then he's back down to middle. He gets a Golovkin middleweight trilogy fight that might get pushed or forced upon him. They're both with the zone now. I think the interesting fights are probably back down for him. That's where he'll be looking to be, back down. Maybe just drop down to middleweight.
He's still even small for that weight, though, isn't he? When you think about it, he's not massive at super middleweight, and that's where I expect him to settle because he won the regular belt there. So I wonder if he'll go for one of the major champions. But then you look at him and you think, where's the money there? Where's the money at super middleweight? So maybe he'll stay at light heavy. I couldn't see it. I don't know. I wouldn't. It's not risk and reward wise with the rest of those champions. You think, does he really want to stay there even if he beats Kovalev? And then it's a long way back down to middle. And has he cleaned up there already enough to justify having another fight? Maybe he'd do Golovkin at super middle or something like that. They'd get a belt on the line. I don't know. But I don't see him staying up there. Surely not.
But even the other champions up there, do they really equate to big money, big sales? We spoke about Beterbiev last week. You got Bivol. You got they're the champions, and Kovalev. So
hard fights and not
they're hard
money.
fights, exactly. So. But he can pick whoever he likes. To say it might be heavyweight. It might be heavyweight if Ruiz comes through. Joshua. I think I put a tweet out and got battered for it when it happened. But I thought Alvarez probably looking at Andy Ruiz thinking, I'll do him. He got a bit of height and reach, but he's no bigger than Kovalev.
Do it Mexican Independence Day.
Yeah.
It would definitely sell.
Well, it would, yeah, definitely. Well, you heard it here first. And earlier on Saturday night, Anthony Crolla will make his farewell appearance in Manchester. He takes on Frank Booyaka.
Is that how you're saying it?
It is
You
how
just
I'm
made
saying
that
it.
up.
Well, prove me wrong by all means.
Booyaka. There's a Q in there. You just skipped over the Q.
Spanish, though. It's
Okay,
different.
silent Q.
Yeah. Famous. Crolla has a strange career, really, George. It's sort of the people's champion is kind of a bit of a cliche, but that is sort of what he's become, really.
Yeah, he's just a really likeable guy, which is he no one really done it better than him. So full credit to him for that. It's you see a lot of fighters who try and go down the likeable route, and it only lasts so long because they either get ignored or they get beat, and then they get the ump, and then they turn it round. But he's done really well. He's done really, really well. I think he won a world title. It was only once, I think.
Yeah, at lightweight. Yeah,
at lightweight, when I don't think he ever said that he thought he was going to become world champion when he first set out, when he first turned pro. So he's become really popular, and the fact that we're talking about his retirement fight is testament to him and his popularity.
I'm sure he will approach it as he approaches any fight, but it must be strange to have a fight that is your last fight. It might be, obviously with yourself, you're tired afterwards, but you didn't, I assume, go into it thinking, this is it, I'm done.
I don't know, everyone's a bit different. So sometimes you just feel it sort of ebbing away, and you're like, there's one more, maybe there's a couple more, but to have the actual status of the retirement fight beforehand, you don't see it that often. I'm not sure I'd be thinking and feeling whether it's a lot of pressure then to go out, with something that you're satisfied with. If you blitz him out in 35 seconds, then he might be like, maybe I will go again. I want a few more rounds. If he goes a few rounds, he might be like, I want to blitz him out in 35 seconds. So, he's got to be happy and content with whatever this last fight is now. Maybe there's a bit of pressure involved in that respect. But Crolla, he seems like a real clever guy. He's into a few different things now. Say immensely popular. I'm sure he's just had enough of the daily grind, the grainy slog of of being in the gym, preparing for fights. The actual fights on fight night is the fun bit, the bit you look forward to. So I'm sure there's many other things that sort of keeping him occupied now that probably taken away from his gym work, and that's why he's sort of put together this retirement fight.
Declan, you've got 30 seconds to tell me all you know about his opponent.
Oh, he's got a Q in his name. He's an orthodox.
It's a Scouser.
Yeah, he's a Scouser.
Gone for a big local derby
It's a big
finish.
derby. No, I don't know much about him, and to be honest, I wasn't expecting a difficult opponent for that reason. It can't be. It's not going to be like a, it's going to be a carnival in there. That's the whole point. It's all about Crolla's retirement, and he couldn't have anyone who's going to beat him. No. I mean, and Crolla surely he's not in this. We know how diligent he is with his training and everything. That's how he's managed to go on this long, and he benefited from that. Like, it was like a weird little golden age of lightweights in Britain with people like him and Derry Matthews, Kevin Mitchell. There's loads of them at that time, and it was perfect for him. And obviously now that's sort of faded away a bit, and he's sort of right. Okay, that's me done as well. The travesty though of Crolla's career is that he never boxed Terry Flanagan. 2 lightweights. I think they both held world titles or version of world titles at the same time. They went to the same school. One's a Man City fan, one's a Man United fan. It was an absolute manna from heaven, and it didn't happen. It's just like so sad because it would have been great. And now, obviously, the appetite is totally gone for that fight. It never happened, and it's happening so regularly now. We're seeing these fights. Brooke Khan could be another one, but they went to the same school. It's like absolutely perfect for him, and we didn't see it, and that's a bit of a shame that we never saw that, but. He's got a career to be proud of. People absolutely love him in the city. To be fair, people love him in Britain, and he is it gets thrown around a lot. Nicest guy in boxing, he's right up there. And you say about, you can go down that route of being a nice guy. I don't think he ever tries or nothing contrived about it. He's just a lovely fella, and he deserved all the success. And I don't think there's anyone, people get a lot of sort of hate online when they're successful. He's not one who gets much hate from anyone, I don't think.
Yeah, you can't begrudge him his success.
No.
He's nice. The nice guy is genuine. Do you know what I mean? It's not put on. It's not a facade. He's not. You can tell that it radiates from him.
Let's hope he wins.
Well,
Yeah.
Who says nice guys finish last? That's all we have time for this week. You can watch us across social media and on YouTube, and of course at Mirror Fighting.